Hey there, and welcome to today's daily premium newsletter for March 28th. So the market remained pretty low today as volume was still pretty thin across the board. So one of the things we saw repeated across a lot of the crypto news sites today was Abra CEO Bill Bernhardt believing that another rally is just around the corner. Mainstream financial analysts might be fixated on Bitcoin's so-called death cross, but hedge fund guys see past that. Bill says, "I talk to hedge funds, high worth net individuals, and even commodity speculators. They look at volatility in the crypto markets and they see a huge opportunity. Once that happens, all hell will break loose. Once the floodgates are opened, they're opened. There really is zero large-scale institutional money from the West in crypto right now. Once a large sizable chunk of Western institutional money starts to come in, watch out. We're getting closer and closer to real clarity in the West that it's okay putting 0.5% of your assets into crypto." Of course, Bill's glowing praise, optimism, and soundbite-worthy quotes all certainly paint a picture that we can agree with, but understand he's trying to drive adoption of Abra's non-custodial mobile wallet. Unfortunately, we can't take too much stock in the words of someone who's clearly invested a lot into this space. We're much more interested in the nonpartisan and contrarian opinions, because they contrast the light with the necessary dark. We don't accomplish anything by considering only what's inside a vacuum chamber. So I've been thinking a lot about how crypto is still solidly in the early adopter phase on the adoption innovation curve. What's been quite evident is that crypto is still lacking the aha moment that defines it as a norm in our society, instead of a fad doomed to recede into obscurity. For example, just compare an article I linked in the newsletter entitled "Will MySpace Ever Lose Its Monopoly?" to this video from the same year where Steve Jobs unveiled the iPhone for the first time.
So, three things: a widescreen iPod with touch controls, a revolutionary mobile phone, and a breakthrough internet communications device. An iPod, a phone, and an internet communicator. An iPod, a phone. Are you getting it? These are not three separate devices. This is one device. And we are calling it iPhone. Today, Apple is going to reinvent the phone. And here it is. No.
Yes, social media and smartphones are very different, and both are not as captivating today as they were in 2007, but they are certainly commonplace. I'd argue that the average person begins and ends their day with both, and I'd probably be right. So why can't the same be true about cryptocurrencies? Sure, if a person is waking up or going to sleep thinking about money, they either recently came into a lot of it or they don't have enough. Needless to say, the average person does not think about money in the same way they think about social media or smartphones. But why can't they? Saying that money is boring is simply using the argument you could levy against the old system and lumping cryptocurrencies in with it. If you've been paying attention to the explosion of different cryptocurrencies out there, it's clear that they've transcended the simple norms that we're used to with regular fiat currency. The evolution of different projects using blockchain is like hundreds of snowballs rolling down the hill. As time passes, the majority of projects are likely to fall apart, but some will grow and become powerful enough to impact the world. When that time comes, the masses will take notice and there's going to be no going back. So with that, turn it over to Doc. Have a great day.
Good evening, it's Doc for ReadySetCrypto. Looking across the markets, not much going on here. We have very, very low volatility, just the market's sort of asleep right now. It has been kind of for the past week or so as we've sort of drifted down. But you can see, now it's not often that I put the MACDs on here, but you can see across the board we have bullish divergences everywhere because a lot of this move has come on very low volume, very low momentum, right? So there's bullish divergences there across the board. And with Bitcoin here, we have basically an equal low and we have a higher low showing on the MACD. So that is bullish divergence, typically is what I'm looking for, at least if we look at the close on here. So I thought I'd take a minute to look at some of the other features that are on this platform. And really surprised by how powerful this platform is. Just for a simple web-based interface, it's actually very, very good. There's a number of features that I've come to expect on much more expensive platforms that I have to pay a pretty hefty monthly fee for in the past. So one of them is the strategy tester. So what you can do is kind of open this one up, and it shows you basically how the strategy has done in the past with the drawdowns and what this is, you know, what kind of profits it's created. Now, I'm not a huge believer in back testing because markets are never the same looking forward as they are looking in reverse. But at least you can see whether or not the strategy has any edge, and then you can see the buys and the sells through here. So if we turn this strategy on, so I'm going to go ahead and turn this one on here. What you can see is actually the buys and the sells that show up on the screen. So we can zoom in here a little bit on them so you can see what these look like, right? So these are just standard buys and sells, and you can see the results of that down here. Now, the way to pull these up is under the indicators, and then what you're going to look for is something that's actually called a strategy, and then you can apply that towards your chart. So Bollinger Band strategy, and plus there's, of course, public library out there. There's just a whole ton of stuff that's out there, overwhelming almost, as well as the public scripts that you can find out there. And I'm sure somebody would want to charge you something for studies and strategies as well too. But that's up to you. I don't think you really need to, based on the amount of built-ins in the public library that's out there. So again, to get a strategy working, you have to apply it to your chart. You have to click on that, apply it to your chart, and then you can see the other elements to that. All right, so let's go ahead and turn that off. The way I'm going to turn that off is to go find this over here, and you can just click on this to say, hide it. I don't want to see it right now. And we can also bury this down here. Now, something else that you can do is called paper trading. So if we pull up paper trading, now I know I brought this up in another interface a couple weeks ago, but what you can do, let's say we're on Bitcoin here, we can do our right click and say trading. Let's go ahead and create a new order. And don't worry if you haven't tied this in with your specific broker, you're not going to be setting up any trades. So it's not a problem. So this is just going to be, now you don't want to do market, you can do a limit order here, and you can basically say what your limit is for this particular buy and sell. This is also really cool. You can do what's called a one cancels other. So this is almost a bracket order that you could set up here, and then you could define what you want your profits to be, what your stop loss is going to be as well too, and how long you're going to have that order in play, whether it's good till cancel or just for a day order. So I really, really like this. The way that I think that anybody should learn how to trade is to do it on paper first, and do it seriously as if it's not a video game. So don't just play around with this. This is where you figure out all the execution on how to enter trades, how to tear them down, how to set stops, how to set risk on a trade, those kind of things. Not with your live capital, not with risk capital. Don't experiment with trading with your hard-earned live capital. Do it on paper trading to begin with. Prove to yourself that you have an edge with this specific market. And once you do that, then you can start to dip your toe into the live risk capital world. And then when you do so, do it with small amounts of live capital. And again, earn the right to be able to eventually build your way up to a full position size. So many people do it exactly the opposite of that. They start out with a full position size, and then they watch that turn into a smaller position size, and then and only then do they say, hey, am I doing this right? Well, no, because they learned how to do this off of either a TV commercial or they let the media tell them that you should get involved with this stuff. So I see this all the time. All the time. Usually this is where I get the phone call right there saying, what should I do? So the very best way to do that, again, is to work your way up in size. Work your way up in size. And it actually takes a fairly disciplined, principled individual to start slowly like that, to patiently work their way up. Most people are in such a rush to become millionaires within the first week of trading that How do you make a small fortune in Bitcoin? Start with a much larger fortune in Bitcoin, right? And end up down there. This is how you do it, right? Let's not do it that way. Let's start with paper. Let's work our way up from there and earn the right to trade live capital as well too. So I think this paper trading interface is really good for those of you that are either starting out new, or for those of you that are experienced. And let's park the egos for a second here, but those of you that are experienced and are looking to set up a new strategy, make it work on paper first before you start feeding it live capital. Okay guys, that is it for tonight's report. I hope to see a lot of you online in the webinar. We're going to be talking about 10 tips to become more of a professional trader. And so that'll be tonight. And if you miss it, don't worry about it. We'll be putting it in the members area. We'll upload that tonight so that you can watch it if you miss it. Hope to see you there. Have a good day. Take care.